What is up, wrestling fans, and all rise for a new edition of the Ruthless Pod-gression. I am, of course, the Tribal Chief of Ringside Intel, Jason Burgos, and with me, as always, is our Oracle, our wise man, the Big Daddy Cool of this podcast, Baby Blue himself, Jose Maldonado. How are you doing tonight, Hollywood?
Doing good, man. Always love a good intro. Appreciate that. You know, Big Daddy Cool, man. You know, he's been in the headlines lately with some advice he gave to Raquel, so I appreciate that shout out, you know, but can't complain, man. Always good to be on here talking graps with you, and it's a lot to get into, especially with this past week, and a lot of great wrestling that fans were treated to, man. It was great stuff.
So on this episode, we're gonna talk about Saturday night's main event. We're gonna talk about, like Jose mentioned, Evolution. We'll give our thoughts also AEW All In. Talk about some of the recent news, some stuff on John Cena's final opponent. One rumor about that. Of course, Seth Rollins' injury was a major thing that came out of Saturday night's main event. So we're going to talk about one aspect, how that might affect some plans a lot of people speculated about for SummerSlam. There's been talk about AJ Styles maybe return to TNA. We're getting to some of those rumors. Fascinating. AEW contracts expiring in the next 6 months. But as always, please, wherever you're at, like, share, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. But let's get into the two WWE shows. That was a Saturday and the Sunday. Saturday's main event, Evolution. For you, let's start with worst match of the two nights, of the two cards. Although, honestly, the Evolution was so good. Evolution 2 was such a great card, event. It had a lot of good matches. But what was the worst match of either card? Maybe most disappointing moment, like just biggest letdown from either event on Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, to your point, man. I mean, both shows were pretty solid, especially Evolution. Top to bottom was just maybe one of the most consistently great shows they put on this year. So it's hard to pick like a worst show. I guess a worst moment or a match. Just by nature of it, unfortunately, it would probably be Seth Rollins and LA Knight. You know, just the circumstances that with the ending of Seth, it was really unfortunate. And, cut it short, not just the match, but probably the program that they were leading into. You know what I mean? Kind of went to the quick finish, did the best they could. Props to Seth for gutting it out and kind of, it seems like he was calling an audible and kind of gauging the situation. So they did the best they could. So if I had to pick one, it would be that, but just circumstances out of their control. Maybe Tiffany and Trish as well. I like the match a lot, but by comparison to everything else that was on the card, maybe it didn't live up to the rest of the hype, especially that main event. I mean, and the triple threat opener was just fantastic. But the Tiffany and Trish just kind of felt like a filler match more than anything, a really good filler match. But there's not a whole lot that can go with it beyond just Trish putting on the great performance and kind of Tiffany maybe finding herself as champion. Not sure whether she's like face or heel. It's kind of a weird situation for her to be in, but I'd probably go with those two if anything.
I think, to me, it was the most hyped match, the most advertised match. To me, the most disappointing. I mean, not disappointing. I guess I was expecting this, but it was Goldberg and Gunther. I mean, it just wasn't that good of a match. I mean, it was okay. It was fine. It had little moments, stuff like that, but it just, that's the danger when you have someone of that age getting into a ring in a big spotlight like that. What Sting was able to do, and they smartly in AEW put him in tag match and everything like that helps you really kind of cover you. And him and Darby were a team for a long time, so it wasn't a weird thing. Like, it was a fitting send-off that can protect him and showcase him in moments, let him rest. Like when the pressure is put on a near 60-year-old man with a lot of wear and tear in the body, like you can see when Goldberg's walking out, that knee's banged up. No wonder they used it as a storyline in the match because it's not good. I think Gunther did the best he could with it in this situation, but yeah, that match was. It's like it probably would have been better off on a SummerSlam or something like that as like a match on the card, but to be the main event, it was never going to deliver. So I guess I wasn't surprised, but it still wasn't that great. That said,
yeah, and you're going to cut off the man's goodbye speech for time constraints too. I mean, that just
well, it's not their fault. It's NBC. NBC's doing that. Like, he can get mad at all he wants, but you're on network TV. This happens.
Get the Peacock on the phone. He could have given him 5 more minutes, for God's sake.
Yeah, for people that didn't see it, he Goldberg was very unhappy about that. It's like, the footage is there somewhere. It'll be released. They'll put it somewhere. It'll be on YouTube. It's like It's not that at the end of the world. Like, and it's so annoying. This is such a Goldberg thing. You got this whole send off, this whole build, a whole match with one of the top stars of today. Oh, they didn't get your whole goodbye speech at the end. How dare they, sons of bitches? Like, it's such a Goldberg kind of thing. But I think we both can agree what was the best match. I mean, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley was just I was curious. I assumed it would be very good because we've seen it before and we know what they can do together. But that's the tough thing about it. We've seen it before and we just saw it like a few months back, right before WrestleMania, a couple times. Then in the triple threat, so it's like, damn, how can they really top themselves? And then they went and topped themselves. Like it just. Yeah. It's not even a question of what we feel is the best match. And I can circle back. We'll go with what was maybe the next best match of the WWE weekend. But I mentioned it for Ringside when I did my grade video of the event. No disrespect to Sasha Banks and Toni Storm, but would you agree? Like Io and Rhea are the best women's wrestlers on the planet right now, and by far.
100%. And we're so blessed to have them in this rivalry where they get to just feed off each other. They're such contrasting styles too. Like Rhea's obviously more of a powerhouse, kind of a that kind of a style, but with the charisma to spare. And then Io is such a great contrast to her. Even just their personalities too. Like Io's a lot brighter, Rhea's the darker side. Io's much more high flying. Rhea's a little more grounded. But they complement each other so well. And to your point, we've seen this match at several stages in their careers now. We've seen them in NXT, we've seen them on the main roster, and they constantly find a way to reinvent the rivalry and up the stakes. You know what I mean? This is obviously the biggest match that either of them have ever had. They were charged with main eventing a female-only pay-per-view with a lot at stake. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people never thought another Evolution would happen. Here it is, and it was up to them to kind of deliver. And they over-delivered yet again. You know what I mean? It really is fantastic, and it's hard to argue against them being 1 and 2. We can get into Mercedes and Toni because they blew it up at All In too. No disrespect to them, fantastic match, and Toni's on the next level with her character. But when you're in the biggest company in the world and you're given the ball like they were, and you deliver
the best division, it's the best women's division in the world too.
100%, it really is. Just stacked beyond stacked, and for them to be on top of that, you got to say they're the best for sure.
Yeah, it just was such a good match. And I'm sure some people, I know you had your thoughts on how with the cash and stuff like that, but I think that almost made it feel bigger, made it feel like a regular PLE. It wasn't just, it's a women's event. And, no, this big things happen and major storylines and, play out. And then I'll be the first one to admit it. And my wife was there the entire time. I was not a big Naomi fan. I wasn't in the glow. I wasn't feeling the glow. I did not care. Because in the end, a lot like Charlotte, she's kind of been the same character for like 10 years. So the fact that she finally changed the character and has absolutely flourished, like we've seen so many people that when they go heel, they just are so much better. She's been unbelievable. So it's like, it was kind of this great match and then like a feel good because this woman completely deserved it, completely earned her cash in and have this fun moment. So it's just a great storyline. And then like we talked about off air, God, the storylines it sets up. Rhea versus Naomi or Io versus is just fun stuff. But that's now we both and the whole world will agree that was the best match of the two of WWE events. What did you feel was the second best? For me, I felt the match at the end was the best, and then the second best was the match that opened it. And Bayley and Lyra and Becky, I thought, tore it up. And what's funny too is Lyra's a great athlete, but Bayley and Becky are not. But they are legends because, like a lot like a Stone Cold, they don't need to be great athletes. They're good athletes, but they're great wrestlers. And they're great storytellers, and they're smooth, and they're technically sound. The fundamentals are fantastic, and they put on a great match. I thought that was the second best of the night.
Yeah, totally agree. Just great bookends to a great event. The beginning and the end were just fantastic stuff. And you could tell the crowd was so hyped for it right from the start. They're getting that standing ovation before they even lock up. So the crowd was there for it. Yeah. And they fed off of that. You see Bayley getting hyped and everything. And to your point, yeah, like Bayley in particular, Bayley just gets it on so many levels. She may not be the most athletic, but you could tell she loves what she does, and she really just leaves it all in there all the time. Because she's a fan at heart. And that's not to take away. There are plenty of great athletes that eventually do find their way in the business. Kurt Angle, the list goes on and on. But Bayley was an absolute fan who willed herself into this position. So she
Mhm.
would know what a fan wants to get out of that. And it seems like she always taps into that. And that's what makes her so beloved. And she delivers on the big stage all the time. And
Yeah.
Becky, it goes without saying, maybe the biggest, the best big match female wrestler they've ever had.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know what I mean? And she's just, and she always knows her role too. Like, she always plays it big, but she understands this is a mid-card belt and she's the heel in this scenario. So she played her role to perfection. And the main goal of that match, at least, for the two veterans, should have been to shine up Lyra. And that absolutely happened as well, because Lyra has looked fantastic throughout this entire storyline. And this match was another showcase for it. Now we're going to get them, 2 out of 3. We're going to get them at SummerSlam. And this should be Lyra's crowning moment at a big event. So for them to, deliver the way they did and keep the ball rolling for Lyra to eventually pick it up and run with it, just fantastic stuff.
Yeah, Lyra deserves a lot of credit. Like for people watching NXT and saw her, or even NXT UK, like we really know how good of a wrestler she was. But that's always the big step when you get to the next level. Can you compete as a character with the other legendary, great, talented characters on the roster? And props to WWE and the creative team. They put her in a position where it was meant to make her look tougher or feisty, and got to show a side of her that, because they stumbled a little bit with her a little bit. They put it with Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. That didn't work. She felt goody-goody, and the fans rejected it almost immediately, and it hurt her. But they put us a storyline with these two top stars where she was forced, go show you deserve you to be there too, and she's absolutely nailed it. And now on Raw, you had Bayley, one of the most beloved characters in WWE history. The crowd was split. You had a "Let's go Bayley, let's go Lyra" chant. Like, that's fantastic, because in the end, Lyra's going to be here the next 10 years. I'm looking forward to the Lyras versus EO and Rhea matches and Stephanie McMahon. Oh, my God. So many side matches haven't done yet.
Yeah, and a really big gauge to how Lyra's been accepted is the woos during her entrance. You know what I mean? Like, it was obviously a big thing.
Yes.
Yeah, when she first came up to the main roster, there were like half-hearted woos from like the NXT faithful and stuff, but the crowd was really into it. Now, full-hearted woos every time she comes out. Fans are really into it. It's really great to see.
Moving on from there, because we'll definitely get to AEW, all in Texas for sure, because from everything I've read and you told me, it was a fantastic card. But interesting story, rumor that came out. Now, in Wrestling Land reports, it's it's always grain of salt with these kind of things. But the rumor is that the final opponent for John Cena will be Gunther. Now, I think anybody, when John Cena announced this year-long tour, the idea of a match with Gunther, I think a lot of people probably assume, just because the way they're pushing Gunther and presenting him in a way he's a top star, and we all thought he should face some of the stars of the future on the way out. But it's interesting in that if their characters stay the same going into December, it's a battle of two bad guys. Maybe it's for both belts, but it just feels like an anticlimactic kind of way for John Cena's career. And that said, maybe it's a hint that he does come full circle. Maybe he does turn back to the good side towards the end, and that what way to go out, this ultimate hero against arguably the top heel on the roster. One, what are your thoughts on Gunther being the possible final opponent for John Cena? Is he the right person? Should it be somebody else? And two, do you also feel like maybe it's a sign that, John Cena by the end is going to turn back to the light?
Yeah, I'm not against, to address the first point, I'm not against Gunther being the guy, just because, I mean, guess he's already established as a main event talent, but if anybody can really carry the equity of ending John Cena's career, it's Gunther. Like him having that almost like a badge on his long ring coat that he comes to the ring with would be another great thing that he could really rub in everybody's faces, and almost as a reward, because he's been so fantastic for them over the past few years. And has carried storyline after storyline, whether it's Jey Uso, whether it's Goldberg, whatever the case may be. He's just they can trust him with some of the biggest moments of the night and know that he can deliver. So for him to be the one to take Cena out, I'm not mad at it. And to the second point, I think it will be a point where Cena will kind of come to the light and want to go out on the terms of reconnecting with the fans and everything like that. Probably will lose the title along the way, maybe as soon as SummerSlam to Cody, who knows? But how they're going to do that, I'm wondering, because he's worked overtime to get the fans to hate him for the past few months, and it's starting to take a little bit. So for it to go to the other way, so quickly, it'll kind of be tough to see. But once they get there, I don't think it'll take much for Cena to play the sympathetic face one more time and ride off into the sunset, and give Gunther the big rub on the way out, as he should.
Yeah, if that is kind of where they're going is Gunther at the end. I mean, I think it does because going into that, we've talked about it before. Like it almost seemed like Cody versus Cena at SummerSlam was a lot faster than we expected. We figured maybe he'd get the title back at the end of this tour, but maybe he does. Maybe I think it would just be bad for in the end. Cena's leaving. Cody's still here. Yeah, he's a made man, but losing to him twice, what benefit is that? That's a very Vince McMahon book, and we're done with that era. So it does really feel like maybe Cody does win. We'll see how they build towards this match, how they tell that story. But yeah, maybe it's he loses here. And the fact that he did he went to these levels to regain that 17th title. He has a fall from grace. Maybe they do have a trilogy, another match in the next couple months, and it resonates with him in a way that I can't be this person. It doesn't work. I got to be who I am, and it's what we all expect and the character we've known for so long. So, but yeah, I mean, if Gunther gets it, man. Retiring Goldberg is seen in the same year. I mean, geez, while being world champion, and he's like Gunther's in his 30s still. Like he's still just in his prime years. Like it's impressive where he may be when we're looking back in 10 years and on his resume. But moving on from there, of course, always wherever you're watching or listening, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you thought about Saturday's main event, what you thought about Evolution 2. John Cena's possibly facing Gunther in his last match. But a bigger story from Saturday Night's main event to me, and I think to most fans, it wasn't Goldberg's retirement. It was Seth Rollins getting injured. I mean, geez, like he's dead center in one of the biggest storylines, not just on Raw, in the company. He's being set up to be the top guy, the biggest heel in the company. He's got this faction where he's kind of helping to bring a couple stars up to the next level. I mean, there's a lot of things relying on him, and he gets injured. It's such a disappointing thing. It just feels like this has happened several times to him where he just has these big moments and his body fails him. It's the unfortunate thing. It's very much a what if in a lot of cases. What if for him if he didn't get injured here or there, whatever. We talked about it off the show. Like I hope whatever injury he has, he's still there. Like he's just on the show in crutches, being a jerk, being an a-hole, just sicking dogs on people. That'll completely work. He can go to the announce desk while those guys are fight matches, and you bring a third member. But that's it. I think we all assumed it was going to be Seth versus Roman at SummerSlam, and Roman shows up on Raw this week. He attacks the two members of the faction. I just feel like that would have been Seth. Like that. This is all what. So how do you think? Because he's back, they're not holding him off. Roman should be at SummerSlam. The guy hasn't been to work in like 3 months, so he should be at SummerSlam. What do you think is going to be? Like, who is it? Is it going to be him versus Braun? Is it going to be him versus Bronson? Is it going to be him versus both of them? Is it going to be somebody else? Like, what do you do with it? He's such a huge star. You can't just put him in any kind of match. You have to maximize him while he's there. What do you think they do?
Yeah, I think they're going to pivot to a tag, and I think they're probably going to put Jey Uso with him, which would kind of make sense to fill that gap. It would feel like a makeshift kind of thing, but honestly, it is, because honestly, with the injury to Seth, obviously, that was going to play a big role in all of this. Yeah. So if they're going to pivot, I wouldn't be too mad at that. The bloodline equity is still there, and it puts two of the biggest stars in the company together against two stars that could very much use that spotlight. Like Braun and Bronson, that's still funny to say, together, really, have been like awesome in their roles. And this could be the next step for them. I wouldn't mind seeing them take the win. Will it happen? I'm not sure if they'll even if Jey Uso takes the pin, it doesn't do a whole lot for either of them. If either of them pin Roman, I don't know if I see that happening with Roman just coming back. I would love to see it, but I think that's the road they go. It really is a shame because obviously the huge pop that Roman got with the return and him attacking Seth would have been awesome to see. And Seth has been just tremendous. I totally agree with you that I hope that they find a way to keep his presence on the show because he's been just so tremendous in this role. And it really does. It's a shame that his body has betrayed him again because he's felt like he was going to be the guy yet again for the foreseeable future, and they were setting up the pieces all around him, and for this to happen just kind of pulls the rug out from under him.
If every point you make it and maybe being Jey, so it makes sense. They maybe set that up on Raw and everything, but God, what a disappointing way to use him. I mean, this guy's the big. It's like Yeah, they should beat him. This guy's a world champion, a former world champion recently, and then one of the biggest stars of all time versus these two guys. No disrespect, they should beat them. Like, that's why I really feel if they want to make this interesting, want to make this an event, kind of featured match, and just continue to use the most out of Roman's brand, it's him versus both of them. He just thinks he's so good, he just faces both of them. Like, or I mean, if they wanted to do him versus Braun, I get that on a level one because Braun was revealed as the new member of this group and he attacked Roman. He speared him. That was the thing. It's spear versus spear. There's a lot of good selling points. Like, I almost feel like Bronson Reed would be shoehorned in and he doesn't fit. There's not a lot of fit to it. So if it's not Braun Breaker versus Roman, I just feel he should face both of them. And it's like, he's such a big star. He's so amazing. Can he beat both of them? He shouldn't, but maybe. I want to watch. I want to see if he can do it. How does he make it happen? And I think that's a more interesting story. But yeah, I can totally see where it goes with Jay. But nah, I mean, another thing I could see is if it's definitely not going to happen now because they just set up a kind of a storyline. But over on SmackDown, Solo and his crew versus Jacob, Jimmy, Jay, and Roman. That'd be interesting. I'd watch that. But yeah, it's a shame. This is so the opposite of Liv Morgan's injury. And we've talked about, like, Liv Morgan's injury was unfortunate, but it opened up unique opportunities, and it has. Roxanne has been great, and she's been a fun element in Judgment Day. The tag team has been good. This is the opposite. This opens no opportunities. It fucks up a lot of storylines. It's disappointing. It's a shame.
It puts everything in a holding pattern, and that's the last thing the storyline needed. So especially with the Money in the Bank briefcase still being there, it feels like everything's on pause, and that's going to really hinder a lot of the talent involved.
Now, there is an interesting story or not story, but hints that have come out just today. TNA Wrestling is doing Slammiversary, and they're gonna be in New York City, NASA Coliseum, or excuse me, UBS Arena now. And big card, and Anthem president, that's the parent company of TNA, Anthem president Carlos Silva, he used to be at PFL, nice guy. He put up a tweet where he talked about how they're going to open up new seats at the arena for the event because they're selling so well. They're going to push the stage back to open up new seats. And trust me, the card is going to be phenomenal, all caps. Okay. Like, everybody wants AJ. It has, it's a shame. AJ, arguably maybe the greatest performer in TNA history. He leaves in 2013 because they tried to lowball. They tried to make this guy take less money to come back. It's crazy. So he left, becomes a legend, and we've all wanted to see it. Now that, TNA and WWE have an official relationship, it makes too much sense for AJ to go back. Also, Trick Williams, recently interviewed by PW Insider, he mentioned in the interview that at a show in Atlanta, he had said, "I'm the greatest TNA champion of all time," and the crowd chanted back, "No, AJ Styles." So he was like, "Oh, well, then I want to face AJ." So you got Trick Williams wanting to face AJ. Also, there was reports that AJ signed a 1-year extension. He's very much, finishing up his career. He's got a year left. If you got a year left, why not go one run at TNA? It just feels like all the signs are there. Is it going to happen, Jose? Are fans going to get what they want? And do you think it happens at Slammiversary? Which is July 20th, this next week or this weekend. Do you think it happens at Slammiversary? Does it happen at all?
I think there's a phenomenal chance that it happens at Slammiversary, to keep the puns going. Yeah, I think I think that's very much in play. He wouldn't have said so otherwise. And with the partnership that WWE has gotten with TNA, it makes all the sense in the world. And throw in the fact that this is it feels like AJ's last ride. Why wouldn't he want to take one last lap in the company that he helped build, if we're being frank? You know what I mean? Like, he was, their MVP. He was their Sting. He was their guy that and for him to go back and at the very least, and I love that it's with Trick too. Like, a lot of the TNA diehards would probably be upset that it's a WWE talent that would be getting that showcase against AJ instead of a homegrown TNA talent. But this match would bring a lot of eyes onto the product, and that's ultimately what matters. You know what I mean? And the match should be fantastic too. AJ can have a great match with a broomstick, and and Trick is no broomstick. Trick can hold his own. You know what I mean? Like, he's a very talented dude, and has been doing fantastic work as a heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm constantly surprised by the NXT factory turning what I think are perennial baby faces into heels and having it work. Roxanne was a good example of that, and now with Trick, he's doing great stuff. So that has main event written all over it. It's in a big market. I totally see that happening, and I think it'll deliver. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, and I get the point completely. AJ versus a homegrown talent in TNA or just a current TNA star, but it's like in the end, it's still business, and in the end, WWE is still loaning two of their talents. So if they're going to do something like that, two notable talents, they might as well have something that sort of benefits them. And maybe gives Trick the rub with AJ. You can promote it on your own airwaves too. But it's also if that's what happens, that's not a guarantee at all. It just might be Trick putting the energy out into the world. Hope it happens. But if it does happen, what a fantastic story! The TNA legend, who's now in WWE, comes back to try to restore the honor of the place that helped build him and kick out like a fellow coworker who's just bugging and needs to get out. It's a fascinating story if that's what they do. But I think it's happening. We may just be overlooking things, but if that's not what Carlos Silva's trying to set up and stuff like that, it just has to happen. He's leaving soon. He's not against the idea if it makes sense. It just feels too perfect. And just the idea of AJ TNA, man, like what a feel good moment. That would be fantastic to see if it happens. As always, please like, share, subscribe, comment what you think. Do you guys hope for AJ Styles ends up back in TNA for a special appearance? What do you think is going to happen with Roman? Last two storylines we'll talk about. One is the news piece, and that came out last week, is that in the next 6 months, and some of them quick, like some of these contracts are going to end like in the next month or so, and that is several AEW talents. One is like Daddy Magic. Like, I'm sorry, don't disrespect Daddy Magic. I don't care about Daddy Magic. But it's Private Party, Danhausen, oh my lord, please, Danhausen NXT, and then Chris Jericho. Who do you think WWE should prioritize getting? And let's factor in money, like box office, that too, talent, upside, long-term potential, all the elements of the various things. Because Chris Jericho, you bring Chris Jericho back for a final run. It's appealing to a lot of people. That's certainly appealing. You bring a Private Party, man, crazy upside like that can be new generation Hardy Boys. You put him in NXT, you groom them, man, they got a ton of charisma, they got a ton of athleticism. Boy, they could be big stars. Or do you bring in somebody like Danhausen? Like Danhausen is a phenomenal character, so funny. You put him in NXT, eventually bring him up to a main roster. This is a guy that could be the next Santino. This is a guy that would be the next R-Truth. This is a guy that has, beyond those two, huge merchandising potential with his look and his, who do you think that WWE should really, they should go get all of them if they could, but who should they prioritize? If they can only get one or two, who should they get?
Danhausen, because it should be very nice, very evil. Please make that happen. Oh my God, the meme potential is through the roof, and it really does make all the sense in the world. If they're looking to make money, this is their guy. Just look what happened with Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry has been a phenomenon ever since he came on the NXT scene, and anybody who was following him in TNA or in the Indies or whatever the case may be knew it was going to happen. Yep. All Joe Hendry needed was the platform, and everybody just gravitated to it. I think Danhausen is a similar case to where Danhausen just needs the right platform to just showcase his unique talent, and I think he could, it really does have blow up potential, whether it's in NXT or eventually on the main roster. Yeah, to your point, he's unlike anything else in the business, and he already has ties to the dude's been on Conan O'Brien's podcast. You know what I mean? So it's like this dude has really touched on some really mainstream stuff, so they can capitalize on that. I would like Private Party there. I'm a little concerned just because the tag division is a little packed right now, and there's like similar teams with similar athleticism. You know what I mean? Like,
it's packed on one side. Like, they need to break up SmackDown. It's all on SmackDown. They need to get a lot of those guys over to Raw. Like on Raw right now, it's New Day, Viking Raiders, and Judgment Day. That's it.
That's a really good point. So if they're looking to plug that hole, Private Party could really play a role in that and instantly be showcased. So yeah, no, totally with that. And Jericho's interesting too, because he's done all he can do in AEW, and the fans have absolutely turned on him. There's really not a whole lot he has to offer there. So why not bring him back for like one last run? And if he wants to be creative behind the scenes, I think WWE would be a better place for him to do it than AEW. He's kind of lost the respected veteran status that he had in AEW, and I think it's at this point it's just best for both parties to cut ties. AEW doesn't really need him anymore. He he brought a lot of eyes to the product initially, and he absolutely served that purpose and helped carry them through the early stages. But now it makes all the sense in the world for him to go back to WWE, which was his first love to begin with, and play the veteran role there, maybe something backstage, and he could add to a lot of the up and coming talents, some of the many ideas that he loves to throw against the wall.
As a pure fan, it's Danhausen. I just love all the possibilities. As a trying to put on my businessman hat, I think it's Private Party. I think just they have so much upside, they have so much potential. Especially go to NXT and stuff like that. You really groom them, really working their skills, and this is a group that could be a top tag team for the next decade. In the end, New Day is not going to be around much longer, or at least not Kofi. Kofi's going to be retired. A guy like Finn Balor is not going to be a ton more years and stuff like that. Some of these tag teams won't make it. Some of them get dropped, but this is a tag team of 220 somethings who are still so much potential. They like I said, they could be this generation Hardy Boys in a certain way. The Jericho thing is fascinating because my God, if he starts talking like, your stupid beard. You know what I think about your stupid beard? And he he pulls out the clipboard. Oh my God, like it's gonna be insane, So, or if we got a match with him and Kevin Owens, but I almost feel like he just won't do it. He'll just screw himself over. Like he wants the power in AEW. I think AEW will kind of give him that same power. But if the WWE is willing to offer him like some kind of, they have a guy like Undertaker in the creative process, and he has the ability to be in the creative process and chip in while being a wrestler, go to NXT. I mean, he should start thinking long term. He's not going to keep wrestling for another 5 to 10 years. Not going to happen. He's not going to be a rocker. Well, I guess he can be a rocker for the next 5 to 10 years, but nobody's going to care. But at least, hey, if he wants to expand his brand with his band, WWE will certainly do much more than AEW. But yeah, it's fascinating.
The soundtrack to an NXT show or two, Fozzy's ceiling,
Yeah, like he performs, he gets attacked, it starts to so many elements that WWE can kill it with narratively and just cinematically and all that kind of things. So, but yeah, I can see all of them end up in WWE in the next year. I think definitely Private Party has been put on the sidelines because they are heading there and they're just waiting to get out of the contract. Same thing with Danhausen. I think Danhausen is ready to go to any of these, but I think he'll be surprised at how much WWE wants him. Moving on from there, and you could take it away here. AEW All in Texas, a huge event. It's in the Texas Rangers Stadium. It's the biggest show of the year. It really was, even though, it's very much the WrestleMania for them. It was a WrestleMania event. So many major storylines linked into it and tied into it. It was the biggest card of the year. What were your thoughts? First, I mean, from all indications, the lot of good matches. But what match on All in Texas where you kind of like, man, this match's okay, or it wasn't what I thought, or disappointed a little bit?
Like a lot of people, unfortunately, I think it was Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think they were just a victim of their previous success. I mean, they had.
Yeah, that's why they shouldn't have done it. But
Yeah, when you have one of the greatest series of matches in the history of professional wrestling, it's hard to top at this stage in the game. And they fought a different kind of match. The dynamic was different because this time Okada was the heel to Kenny Omega's face. Don Callis was involved. So there was a lot of shenanigans around the whole thing. People would kind of want to see them run it back with continental rules to where there's no interference, and I'd like to see that as well. But given the lead up, I mean, if I'm being honest, what ultimately led me to buy the event was when that match was announced. I was like, all right, if it's Okada and Omega running it back, at the very least, I got to see what they got. You know what I mean? Like their other matches are just historically great. And, it was a bit of a letdown. Not to say it was a bad match. It was just different and couldn't reach the spectacular levels that they had set for themselves previously. So if I had to pick one disappointing match, that'd probably be the one.
Yeah, I get the thinking on it, but it's like, that's the unfortunate thing. Tony Khan's just such a fanboy and stuff like that. It's like, we've seen it and it's not going to be better. I'm sorry. These guys are, 5-6 years older. It's not going to be better. So why are we trying to do it? Like, let them be stars and make somebody else or help somebody else or make new classic matches. So yeah, it's a bummer that it wasn't lived up to the hype, because the hype's unreal. The hype is just, I want to see what I saw a few years ago when the greatest match of all time. Just never going to be that. That said, what was the best two matches on the entire card?
Best two matches, and there's a lot to choose from. Let me say right off the bat that, AEW really wanted to deliver a huge event here. The length very much says so, but they absolutely
the
delivered.
longest event in history, North American wrestling history.
Yeah, that's a hell of a moniker to take. You know what I mean? A very button-numbing moniker that they really claimed there. But it really was a fantastic show. They put out all this. They brought out all the stops, and it was tremendous top to bottom. If I had to pick two matches, one I'll save because it's an obvious choice. But if I had to pick a second match, it's between the tag match of the Young Bucks and Ospreay and Swerve, and the women's title match, which would be like Toni Storm and Mercedes.
Wow.
Yeah, they were really terrific stuff. What really brought Mercedes and Toni to another level is their character work. Say what you want about Mercedes, but she's really coming to her own with the CEO stuff, especially in the last 6 months or so. The belt collector gimmick, her feud with Harley Cameron helped kind of turn a corner for her, at least for me. It brought a little bit of much needed humor to that character. Like she really needed to kind of be the, pie-faced a little bit, and she kind of was. Okay. So to be up against somebody as ridiculous as Toni Storm, and I mean that in the best sense, because that character is absurd, but it's so over because she just presents it so well, and she's so great in there. That was a terrific match, but ultimately I'm going to go with the tag match because that's the essence of what AEW is. You know what I mean? For better or for worse, the Young Bucks style and that PWG style is what sells AEW. It's something different, the athleticism and everything like that. And you have four of the most athletic dudes in the wrestling game right now. And I'm a huge Ospreay fan. So seeing Ospreay do what he do right next to Swerve, who has really shocked me how much he has.
Yeah, really he's the biggest success story from AEW that's been a WWE guy.
100%. He's what I expected Adam Cole to be. And, it's really unfortunate, Adam Cole's situation and stuff like that. Like the signing that they got, that would be the long-term, solution for AEW. Swerve has very much taken that mantle and has run with it, and the match was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal showcase of their style. There's highlight after highlight, and I think the right decision was made having the Young Bucks lose and kind of to see where they go with losing their EVP power, their VP powers. It'll be interesting where it goes. But the other match of the night is the main event, Hangman and Jon Moxley. We knew
it seemed like they were trying to capture WrestleMania 40 with the run-ins and all these kind of things. Like I feel like they were very much trying to do the same thing.
100%. This was their overbook. This was their Avengers Endgame. This was just like, let's throw everything in there. And it worked for what it was. You know what I mean? And Hangman was the right man to tell that story. He's their main character. The crowd was super invested. We knew it was going to be a bloodbath as soon as they announced Texas Deathmatch. Mox is looking for all kinds of ways to bludgeon himself, and he found plenty of ways to do that. So, if he was going to lose the title, he was going to lose it on his terms, and it just reestablished Hangman as the guy in AEW. If Darby was going to be off, conquering Mount Everest, and Bryan Danielson can't go full time like he used to, then put the belt on Hangman and let the crowd have a really feel good moment in Texas in their biggest show, that they've had in the United States, and they pulled it off. It was a tremendous main event, and I'm excited to see what goes next, which is ultimately be the point of all these shows.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that is this edition of Ruthless Pod-gression. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment. What did you guys think of Saturday night's main event, Evolution, AEW, all in Texas? What were your favorite matches? What were your least favorite matches from a wild weekend of a ton of wrestling? But for this episode, I am Jason Burgos. He is Jose Maldonado. Until next time, bye-bye.